This is the EQS. Oh wait, hang on. This is the EQS SUV. Again, not the EQGLS or something like that. It's just the EQS, but SUV. And it's all new, just like the EQS sedan was that we reviewed earlier this year. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you some of the features of it. I'm going to drive it and give you my honest opinion of if you should buy it or not. So with that, let's get into things. The EQS 580 starts at $125,000. It features all-wheel drive due to its dual front and rear motors that produce 536 horsepower and 633 foot-pounds of torque through a single-speed transmission, making for a 0 to 60 time of just 4.5 seconds. It provides an estimated 285 miles of range and is able to charge from 10 to 80% in 31 minutes. It seats up to 7 passengers and features an ultra-modern interior with their hyperscreen carried over from the EQS sedan. Let's dive into the interior. As you can see, we have Mercedes hyperscreen in this car, which consists of 3 very large displays. To control the driver's information center, you have this little pad on the wheel here, and you can see you could switch through various different looks for the screen. I mean, there's a lot to pick from. You have an off-road mode, very, very tastefully laid out. I mean, no other car brand right now has a driver's information cluster that's this configurable, and honestly, the graphics that Mercedes has are simply the best in my opinion right now. And it goes a step further because you can configure what you see even on the heads-up display, which is really cool. I have not seen a heads-up display this good in any other car. Moving on to the main infotainment display, I mean, this rivals the size of Tesla displays. I mean, this is just absolutely massive, and it's actually very responsive. I mean, you can see the graphics of the map are really cool. I mean, the water's animated. Mercedes has spent a lot of time in making this what it is. And the cool thing is, since this is an EV, Mercedes does include a EV tab, which helps you plan your trips based off of where you would need to charge if you need to take any breaks in between to get there. And it also does map out all the charging stations for you, which is pretty convenient. A lot of electric vehicles do that. Just something important to point out there. One of the cool things to know is the 360-degree camera. I mean, just take a look at this. You cannot tell me this isn't one of the best 360-degree cameras in the business right now. I mean, just look at that. And moving on to the third screen, you actually do have to be sitting in the passenger seat to operate it. More or less, this is just here to look cool. There really isn't that much function to this screen. I mean, there are a few features to it. You could basically just display information that's redundant with the information you could display on the main screen here. And in the back, it's really not a bad experience. I mean, I have plenty of legroom. However, seeing that this has been branded as an S-Class product, one of the things that I will comment on is, even though you do have rear seat controls, I don't know, there may be an upgraded package for this, but you can't recline the seats that far back. This is as far as it goes, which is a very upright position. I have plenty of legroom, but this is a pretty upright seating position. You do get this very S-Class-like tablet where it looks like you do have a few controls. I mean, I think this is a very neat thing to have. I think it's more useful than having the redundant passenger screen, and you can even eject it. And wow, look at that. It is a Samsung tablet. Not expected. For a second, I thought it would have like a Mercedes brand or something, but nope, just a Samsung tablet. Pretty neat. And getting into the rear, you just pull this one button right here, and you can see the front seat gets out of its own way, and the rear gets out of its own way, and you have 2 little jump seats back here. You can fit small kids. I won't even attempt to get back there. I mean, there's almost no legroom. So again, really small kids, but at least you do have it. Out of the few electric Mercedes that I've driven so far, the EQS sedan and the EQB, the EQS SUV makes both the most sense and the least amount of sense. out of the two of those. Now, where it doesn't really make sense is from a branding standpoint. I feel like this doesn't really know what it wants to be. I mean, it's not the size of a GLS. It's not called the EQ GLS. So is it trying to be the GLS replacement, or just kind of like a middle tier model in between those two, and then we have a bigger electric GLS coming out? I don't know, because it feels like it's the size of a GLE in terms of space, with just 2 jump seats in the rear, which, you know, once again makes it a 7-passenger, but the GLS can fit smaller adults in the back, whereas this, you're only fitting small children. So I don't know, from that standpoint, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. However, where this does make sense is as an overall package. It's taking the very best elements of the EQS and bringing them into an SUV. Now, even though this doesn't feel like the size of a GLS, I really do like it, because you're getting the ride quality of the S-Class sedan, where it's, you know, nice and floaty and comfortable. You feel really isolated from the road. And then pairing that with an electric power platform, it's just so smooth and refined. I mean, it really makes sense. Now, in the S-Class sedan, I want to hear a little bit of V8 rumble in the background. You know, I feel like that's been a characteristic of the S-Class for a long time at this point, and I missed it in that car. But in the SUV, I just want it to be quiet and a comfortable, isolating experience. And that's what I feel like I am getting in the SUV. It has enough power, whereas if you were driving a V8 variant of the GLS over the last 5 years, you won't necessarily be missing that. I mean, you know, from the line, hang on, ready, and yeah, it actually does put you back in your seat. But the power delivery is just so smooth. It's just very, very impressive. The only area that I don't like, that I think really needs improvement, is the braking feel. Now, I said this about the EQS sedan, and I'll say it about the SUV too. I feel that you do have enough stopping power. It's not like you don't feel confident with it, but the pedal feel feels very spongy, and I don't know, just not like what we're used to from other Mercedes vehicles and just cars in general. But one of the most impressive things is the steering radius. Now, you do have rear wheel steering in this car, which makes it feel much, much, much smaller than it actually is. The handling is just really, really great. You do have some body roll, but it's so progressive, it really does feel like it fits the vehicle. It doesn't, you know, feel like it's just rolling into the turns in an uncontrolled manner. I feel like this is checking off all the important boxes in terms of a luxurious experience. Now, one of the things I would spec in one of these cars that this specific one doesn't is the Nappa leather interior. I'm not really so much of a fan of the use of materials of this like cloth material. I know they're doing that to be like kind of like eco-friendly and, you know, more forward with their designs. However, this is an S-Class product. I really feel like you need that nice leather interior. This has MB Tex and this cloth material, but at the price point that this is at, I really do feel that this should be the Nappa leather in here. Like in a standard S-Class, if you don't get the Nappa leather interior, you at least get Nappa leather seats and then the MB Tex dash. This, you're getting like a cloth material. Not so much a fan of that. From a technological standpoint, as I went over earlier, the infotainment in this car is just, it really checks all the boxes. But one of the things I didn't mention earlier was the sound system. The sound system in this is really, really next level. And I experienced it in the EQS sedan at first, and I was just as impressed with it there. The ability to create your own custom sound profiles is really like second to none. I mean, like, I haven't seen it in any other cars, and the sound system in this is truly, truly amazing. What Burmester is doing in partnership with Mercedes, you're just not seeing in other brands. You know, in the Volkswagen Auto Group products, you know, the Audis and the Porsches with the Burmester audio systems, they just don't even come close. They sound really good. Of course, they're still designed by Burmester, but I feel like since Mercedes has been working longer with Burmester, you get just, they're just giving you the next generation features first here. Next, we're going to talk about the self-driving. So I'm going to turn that on, and let's see, we're going to set it. All right, we're going to set it. It recognizes 35-mile-an-hour zone. Let's see if it can handle the turn. Nope, it can't. Okay, so I've been in another Mercedes with the self-driving function, and this still retains the same weakness. So on the highway, in traffic, the system works flawlessly. It really does. And on a back road, when you have painted lines on both sides, it's fine. But if you go through an intersection, or like back there where there was a street entrance and the white line on the right side was broken, this feature falls apart. It just loses it, and it'll drift off, and you have to be prepared for that. Another thing is, this does not recognize stop signs or traffic lights, which some systems do at this point. I think that overall, it really is a great package, but there are other things to keep in mind. Now, this isn't for you if you travel long distances or you live in areas where the infrastructure doesn't support it yet. Now, a lot of people don't think about this. Now, I live in the Northeast. I'm here in Connecticut. So there is a very strong charging infrastructure here in Connecticut, the New York, New Jersey area. You're not going to have any issues charging. But, you know, if you're in the Midwest or, you know, out somewhere a bit more remote, it may not be practical for you to own an electric vehicle yet. And you have to take these things into consideration when thinking of buying one of these. Now, the range has gotten much better on these in general, and I feel that it is much more practical than it's ever been to own one of these. And if I had to pick between this and a Tesla, even though the Tesla has a few more cool features, we'll say, because, you know, it's a tech company, I feel that the EQS SUV just brings so much more to the table in terms of interior quality and feel than you would get from a Tesla. And right now in the SUV world, there really isn't anything that directly compares to this in terms of ride quality and refinement and overall feel when looking at it from a luxury standpoint. So I think this is for you if you don't travel long distances. You know, if you're somebody who's going to be doing frequent road trips, the charging times on these are still pretty long. So I probably wouldn't get it if I was that person. But if I'm somebody who, you know, maybe at most drives between 100 and 200 miles a day, you know, for work, like maybe, you know, you're a commuter, I would get this in a heartbeat. It's one of the most comfortable commuters you could possibly have. I feel absolutely relaxed in this car, as you should in an S-Class product. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that it helped out. If you haven't done so yet, help me out by hitting that like button, subscribing, turning on the bell notification, and being sure not to miss out on next week's video. Before I go, I'd like to say a special thanks to my friends down at Mercedes Fairfield, Connecticut for making today's video possible. They're a great group of people to work with, and if you're in the area locally, be sure to check them out. I'm going to leave their contact information in the description below so you can do so. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.